and welcome to the Unnecessary Gaming Podcast, a podcast about tabletop and video games, old and new, brought to you with a healthy chunk of chat and banter, apparently, by Chris, Euan, Dave, that's me, and Pawel. And sometimes Pawel. I mean, it used to be with Pawel. We miss you, Pawel. This is episode 130. Did you know 130 Hz is very close to the frequency of the musical note C? And that's the C that's one below middle C, C3 as it is sometimes known. Now, technically C3 is 130.81 Hz. And some people might be tempted to suggest that because 130.81 Hz is closer to 131 Hz than it is to 130, that perhaps I might have saved this bit for episode 131. And those people would be wrong. This is a video games episode. First up, Chris has been having a relaxing time in Future Cat Sim and game actually released in 2022. That'll be Stray. And after that, Dave, that's me, will be here to tell you all about the Chthonic dungeon crawler, Hades. Is it a roguelike or is it a roguelite? We've talked about it before on this podcast and we'll talk about it again. So there you go, episode 130. Enjoy.
Right, let's talk about Stray. Let's talk about a game that actually came out quite recently.
Finally, we're getting on to the
AAA
titles.
It's taken us about 3 years. We're up to date now. Right, I'm sure everybody's seen a lot about Stray. It kind of appeared on definitely on PlayStation. I think it is. Is it on Steam? Yeah, it is on Steam. I'm not sure what else it's on.
But a console exclusive in the sort of new vein of console exclusives where it's on one console but also it's on PC, which seems to be the way everything is now. So quite a big deal because PS5 doesn't have that many exclusive games.
Hey, bug snacks, mate.
Bug snacks, yeah.
You can't run bug snacks without the power of the PS5.
So Stray, I'm tempted to say that I actually did get this on PS Plus Extra, which I signed up for, and I will do a games roundup in the vein of Dave about PlayStation Plus Extra games, because I feel like it deserves it. So I'll do that at some point, but Stray is one of the games that's on it, and I was actually about to buy Stray, and then I thought, what am I doing? I can just pay, less money and get a massive library of games, and that's what I did. But Stray was the first one I downloaded. So everybody's seen it. It's a game about a cat. It's a cat simulator. It's basically just a cat simulator game, but what I have to say is actually quite a beautifully well-made cyberpunk post-apocalyptic-ish world. It's kind of hard to determine what's actually going on in this world, but it seems that there were humans and now there aren't humans. And you're playing the role of a stray cat who is in a family of stray cats, but your poor little stray cat, who is nameless, I'll just have to say, he's just called Stray, he or she, don't know, gets split up from its group of stray cats and falls down into the underworld of this planet, presumably Earth, and ends up in a world full of robots and blobs. So...
Wait,
that's basically it.
Blobs.
Robots and blobs. Yeah, robots and blobs.
No one said there was blobs in this game.
Oh, there's blobs. There's a lot of blobs. The blobs are bad. All right, when you're playing this game, just remember, blobs are bad. The blobs, they do have a name. I can't remember. The robots do call them something, but I can't remember what it is. It starts with an N. But the blobs, they'll try and attack you, and they'll just come bouncing along. They're like little slimes out of, like Dragon Quest and stuff. They're almost like that, but a bit more sinister. And they will attack you. So you want to stay away from the blobs or run away from them or something. At some point you do actually get a little sort of thing that will help you get rid of them, but I don't want to give too much away about this game. It's great. I'm just going to say that. The game's great. The robots in it are they're like a weird population living an almost slum-like existence underneath in the underworld of this Earth. They haven't seen the outside before or anything like that, but they are their heads are like old Apple Mac monitors. Those really old original ones.
Yeah.
Their heads are like that, and they've just got little faces on the screens. Just little, like a line, like 2 lines for eyes and a mouth. It's basically, that's all they are. Nice. And you can't speak to them or anything until you find your little companion robot called B12, who's just this little floating guy. Just this little, he's like a pair of binoculars, just floats about above the cat's head. The cat just kind of goes along with it because the cat wants to get back to the outside and back to its family. That's the whole point of the game. But that's the main point of the game. But then as you play through the game, B12 becomes a bit more important because it seems B12 has no memory of anything and is trying to figure out who he or she is, or it is. And as you go through the game, you start to unlock its memories, and then that becomes quite important to the sort of story of it. It's weird. It's very addictive, this game, and you just play it, and it's quite cozy, even though there are moments of tension when you've got the blobs chasing you and things. But it's the kind of game that, like, you know, like when you play a game for an hour and you're sitting on the couch and it's, you know, nice warm room, and you just, after an hour or so, you just start to feel a little bit like your eyes are starting to shut. And it's not a bad thing. It's not because you're bored. It's just because you're very comfortable and cozy in everything that's going on.
Cozy gaming.
Cool. It's cozy gaming at its finest. Aye, it's great. It's absolutely wonderful. And you can do all the cat things. I mean, I was playing it earlier on today. I got an achievement for jumping on a table that two robots were sitting at playing Mahjong. So I just got an achievement for jumping on the table and wrecking it. And they get very annoyed with you. And you know, you can walk about. It's occasionally the game will give you some prompts to like press triangle or whatever to knock something over. It doesn't do anything, but it's just a cat being a cat. Press circle to meow.
Of course.
Does it help? Not really. But you can just do it all the time if you want. There's little bits in the game where, like, you might find a little cushion sitting on the ground somewhere, and you can just go up to that, and there'll be a triangle prompt, and the cat will just curl up and go to sleep. Doesn't save the game or anything. Doesn't serve any purpose. The cat curls up and goes to sleep, and it purrs. And if you've got the PlayStation controller or PS5 that comes through the speaker on that, all this lovely little purring noises. It's just a cozy game. I'm really enjoying it. There's some good things. I mean, I'm making it sound like nothing actually happens in it, but there's some good things. There's like puzzles you need to solve, which become more like once B12 comes along, which is very early in the game. The robots will start saying to you, all right, well, if you want to do this, you need to do that, and then you'll have to go off and solve some sort of puzzle. But you know, the cat's just a silent protagonist almost. That's all he is, because all he does is meow. It's the robot that communicates with the other robots. Your little B12 robot will communicate with the other robots and everything. So you're just kind of going along doing what the robot's saying, basically. Like I say, it's beautiful. The art, everything, absolutely gorgeous. It's stunning. I'm really, really enjoying it. So thumbs up for the cozy cat game, Stray.
Oh, I'm glad you're enjoying it, because it's had a sort of mixed response, from what I gather, because I've heard so many people who are maybe a little bit disappointed with it. So it's just nice to hear from someone who actually really enjoyed it for what it was.
I think, like, because I tend to like gameplay in games more than anything else. So like graphics tends to be a secondary thing for me. But the graphics in this game, like I say, it's just the feel of it and everything as well. It just makes it like it's just a cozy game. And sometimes that's what you want to play. You're not wanting to play, you know, Hunt Showdown. You're not wanting to play Call of Duty or Final Fantasy or anything like that. You just want to play something cozy that'll pass some time for an hour and, you know, help you feel a bit peaceful and calm. Great game for that.
You think there's a new game plus?
I think there might be. There's definitely. I was absolutely kicking myself earlier on because I accidentally moved on to the next area while I was looking for an item that a robot was wanting.
Oh no. And
while I was looking for it, I accidentally moved into the next area and I couldn't go back. And I was like,
a side quest.
Fuck, I've missed an achievement.
There's
definitely, there's stuff like that in it. So like, and getting the robot, little B12, getting his memories back, you can see how many memories he's missing. So I can see that I've missed one earlier on as well. So I think, I might be wrong, I might be thinking about something else, but I think you can go back and play chapters of it, but I might be wrong about that. But yeah, cool game.
Nice. All right. Thanks, Chris.
Thanks, Dave.
Cheers, Chris.
Thanks, you.
All right, guys. So I've been talking to a few of our podcast listeners out in the real world, and whenever I talk to them, the one question they are continually asking me is like, Dave, when are you going to talk about the 3.7 update to NetHack? They just won't stop going on about it.
I understand
Wait.
these fans can be quite intense.
They're like, we want to hear...
Before or after? Is that before or after they ask you where the podcast's available?
They're like, I want to hear your hot take on the debuff to the Valkyrie class not getting a longsword and it's starting inventory anymore. I mean, it's controversial. But I'm sorry to our NetHack fan, but...
You mean Pawel?
We're not going to talk about that today. That'll have to wait for Pawel. That'll have to wait for another episode, because today I'm going to talk about a different but related game, and I'll try and mention NetHack a few times when I do talk about it, just to keep them happy. The game I'm actually going to talk about is Hades from Supergiant Games, who are known as the makers of games such as Bastion, Transistor, and also the weird sports game Pyre.
Bastion. Sorry, I can't help. I can't hear the word Bastion and not say Bastion.
Didn't think of that's never-ending story.
I haven't even seen that film. I just think it's just the natural way to say that word.
Hades is it's a hack and slash roguelike or roguelite.
Well, which one is it, Dave?
Well, more on that later. We'll come back to that. But it takes inspiration from classical Greek mythology. You play as Zagreus, who is this like handsome young dude who speaks in this kind of, it's very soft-spoken, almost RP accent, received pronunciation. But despite that, he likes to say cheers instead of thank you. And he's constantly referring to people as mate. It's really strange. He's always going like, thanks, mate.
Has he just gone to uni for the first time? Like from
it's a bit, well, he is of the right age.
It's like just making sure that he fits in when he goes down the local boozer.
Two pints of your finest. Thanks, mate. So you get dropped straight in this game. Like there's no preamble. You're banged straight into Tartarus, which is one of the planes of the Greek alphabet, the Greek afterlife. The game uses the 2D isometric view, and it's got that distinctive Supergiant art style that people will be familiar with if they played games like Bastion and so on. That's all there. Looks gorgeous. And before you even do anything, the first thing you're going to see is like this little glowing shield, which you have to step up and interact with. And you immediately receive this communication from Athena. And she's talking to you up on Olympus. You can't speak back to her. She's just sending you this message down into Tartarus. And so you get a bit of chat, and you're then presented with three boons of Athena, and you have to choose one of these. And these are like upgrades, buffs. They're modifications to your four or five core powers that you have in the game. Like you have like a normal attack, you have a sort of heavy attack, you can dash, you have a magic spell that you can use, and you can also call on the gods to give you their direct assistance. And so you have to choose one of these, and then off you go. That's you into the game. And the way it works, you're in a room, quite a small room. Some enemies will spawn. You have to kill them using whatever weapon you have. Once you succeed, or if you succeed in doing that, the exit will open, allowing you to leave the room. Sometimes there's one exit, and sometimes there are several. And on each of these exits, it shows you what the reward is going to be for the next room that you go to. So it's very much in the Faster Than Light or Slay the Spire style. Yeah. You don't get the overview grid type view, but it's the same structure. And that's what you're doing. You're going through this procedurally generated dungeon, and each time you kill the enemies, and then you make your choice of what kind of upgrade you're going to get next. And it could be another one of these boons from one of the Olympian gods, or it could be a bunch of other things. There's like currencies for you to pick up. It could be more health. You get the idea. There's different sorts of things. And as you go through the game, you are buffing your character and kind of developing a build. as you go. But you have this kind of limited choice, and you have to make the best of what the game has to offer you. But you have an element of choice in it by deciding which exit you go through when you leave the room. So quite familiar if we've played these kind of games. The combat, pretty fast paced. Your dash is important. You dash a lot. You're invulnerable when you dash, so you dash to avoid damage. You dash to get into range with the enemies. There's melee enemies. There's lots of projectiles. It can get quite bullet hell-like sometimes with certain enemies, but not like I wouldn't describe it as a bullet hell game. Like, I was able to play it. Let's put it that way.
That's a good way of knowing that.
Yes.
Okay.
And eventually, you die. You run out of health, that's you dead. The game doesn't give you much to start with, so it'll probably happen quite quickly. And you're carried along the River Styx. You pop out of the pool of Charon, and you're into Hades proper, the hub area of the game. And it's here that Zagreus, and us as the viewer, meets his dad. And his dad is Hades, the god of the underworld. And Hades and Zagreus do not get on. Zagreus is a young man stuck at home living with his dad, and each of them is not at all impressed with the other. And this is the theme of the game. It's like something I've never seen this in a game before. It's very unusual and different. Like Hades himself, he is not impressed with his son's general approach to life, and Zag thinks Hades could just be less of an arse. So I would say this is a theme that many of us can relate to. I would say.
We've all been there.
Yes. So what you've done in Zagreus is you've basically announced to your dad your intent to leave the underworld. He's like, I'm out of here. And your dad's like, all right.
But teenage rebellion there.
Good luck with that. But this hub area, it's such a big part of the game. It's not just a simple hub. It's where you'll spend some of the currencies that you've picked up while you're out in the dungeons to unlock new abilities for Zagreus, which will make subsequent runs easier. I just want to, my little note about roguelite versus roguelike. Just something I wanted to say, like this thing where you do repeated runs of the game and unlock things to make future runs easier. That is not in Rogue at all.
No.
That branching system that we're so familiar with, limited choices, and you have to choose, not in Rogue. Shops with 3 items in them, not in Rogue. But these have become real standard features now.
Yeah, definitely.
With the whole plethora of like roguelite or whatever roguish games.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying these are bad things. They're often very good, but none of that comes from NetHack or Rogue or anything like that.
So Rogue Legacy kind of started that a wee bit.
Some of it, yeah, the sort of getting stronger with repeated deaths. Yeah. I think it might have done, yeah. So, I mean, I don't know if that is... I mean, I'd love to say that was the difference between roguelite and roguelike, but I'm not sure that it is. People seem to just use them almost interchangeably and have their own personal definition now.
We've talked about this before, and I'm sure that there's massive arguments about this on the internets, believe it or not.
Yes. He's got the rogue purists.
Yeah.
Rogue descendants, I think we should call them.
Who Dave looks down on as a NetHack player.
Yeah, exactly. He's a purist.
I am.
He's too pure for even the purists.
So, like, this hub area, it's not just purchasing upgrades. There's people to talk to. There's different weapons for you to unlock. You've got this like add-on item slot that you can slot different things into, and you have to unlock things to put in there, and that gives you a bit of sort of strategy. There's quests, there's like furniture to buy. Your dog is there, Cerberus, your pet dog, and you can pat him on the head.
Excellent.
It is a big thing. And like, to the extent where there was times when I was playing the game, I was out in a run in the dungeon, and I was like, I just want to die so I can get back.
Yeah.
I can get back and see what else is there, because it was just constantly surprising me. Yeah, I don't think I've played a roguish game that quite had that before. I was very impressed by that side of it. And that's kind of it. That is the game. You just go out trying to escape the underworld, and you can finish the game. What I particularly liked, there's like 3 natural ending points in this game. So I can't really spoil what they are, but there's sort of the first one where you've kind of achieved something pretty significant. It's quite hard to get to. It will take you quite a bit of time, a number of attempts to do it. And then you can continue playing, and then there's kind of like the proper ending, and you get the credits and some nice music and stuff. And then beyond that, there's like an epilogue, which you can also play through, and that takes a bit of time and grind. And I thought that was pretty neat, because it almost like caters the game to different player abilities, having these points where you can stop, like getting right to the end, especially with these. It adds in later these difficulty mutators, so you can apply these before you go out on your run, and they make it more challenging. And it can be things like just let enemies do more damage, but they can also be quicker. It can give them new attacks. There's all sorts of other wacky things, and you can add these in to give this sort of overall heat rating. And trying to get through on a particular heat rating is a part of the game as well.
Right.
But you don't have to do that to feel like you've done Hades, I don't think. I really like that. I've not done the epilogue yet, but I did manage to get to the credits. So, like, in terms of difficulty, it's challenging, but it's doable by the average player. And like I say, I think it caters itself well to like different kind of abilities with these very dexterity and visual focused games. Because there's a lot of, like, it is a little bit challenging for me, because you have to do this thing where you have to look at where you are, your character on the screen, but you have to also look at where you're going to, and you have to look at the enemies. It's like you need 3 eyes while you're playing. Like the number of times I'm looking at where I want to go, and then an enemy just hits me. Like, took me quite a lot of practice to get out of that. But it's doable. But whilst also offering a real hardcore challenge for people who want it. Like, if you put in like lots of difficulty mutators and get the heat up really high, it's definitely hard. The challenge is definitely there if you want it. The music is great. I love the way that they've integrated this death and going round and round again. It's integrated into the story, because as Zagreus, you're immortal. It's the son of Hades. It makes sense.
Yeah.
That you just keep dying and coming back. And they've made a story that integrates very well with that. And I was very much enjoyed that. Just one final thing, the voice acting. All the characters, and especially the gods that you talk to, all fully voice acted. And I love it. I think quite a lot of the voice actors are American, but they're doing mostly, not always, but a lot of our kind of British-ish accents. And they do them well, but you can always hear a little tinge of American, even with Zagreus. And one character, Dionysus, or Bacchus, Dionysus, the god of like revelry and drinking. Euan, it's worth you playing this game just to experience Dionysus. You know how you were talking about Eric?
Yeah, I was listening to that the other day.
He is another Eric.
Oh,
he does. He's like, hey Zag. He always calls him Zag. He's like, hey Zag, mate. Looking forward to seeing you up here at Olympus.
He's got the Radio 1 DJ transatlantic accent thing going on.
He absolutely does.
I love it.
He's a complete joy.
I might have to check that out.
I mean, I'm not sure it's quite your kind of game that you would play, Euan, but you definitely...
I know, well, those kind of
get a big
games
kick.
I struggle with a bit, to be honest. You know,
You got to sink a bit of time into them.
You're saying you need 3 eyes. I only have 1, so it's like it's a bit of, it's like watching me try to play Diablo. It's diabolical.
Yeah, good analogy where you have to like look at 2 things at once, pretty much.
Oh, right.
Yeah. I mean, these games aren't for everyone. Just going through again and again and again. Some people are just obviously are not going to be into that. But
I don't mind. I quite like. I've enjoyed those kind of games before, so it usually depends on the game and like, yeah, just how enjoyable it is to play. As you say, if it's got a good story and characters and stuff, then usually that's enough.
The story is definitely strong, and by playing, you're unlocking the story as you play the game.
Yeah,
and just discovering like. I love that, like one of the things I loved about NetHack, just to cram in another NetHack reference, like initially you're like, oh, it's just this stupid procedural dungeon. I just go through and hit things and all the rooms look the same. But then you find this staircase down eventually and you're into this new area that looks different and it's the Gnomish mines and there's different enemies there and it's dark and like, but it's procedurally generated as well. So you're like, okay, fair enough. And you go down and then if you manage to get down far enough, there's a fucking town. It's a bit of a spoiler. Sorry for anyone who's...
That's it. I can't play it now.
Game's ruined. And way back, that's what I liked about the game when I played it originally, was it just kept putting in these things that went against my expectations. And there's definitely a bit of that in Hades because there's just so many like things to find. It's not just an endless procedural grind of slashing monsters. It's really good, and I can see why people were so into it way back at the start of lockdown.
Yeah, it won a lot of awards and stuff, didn't it? It was very well received, from what I remember.
Yeah, good game. Definitely recommend it.
Cool. Thanks, Dave.
You're welcome, Chris.
Yeah, cheers.
And there we have it, episode 130. I'd like to tell you what's coming up in the next episode, but I don't know what that is yet. I can tell you that Chris has been working away on the Final Fantasy remake, a quest that he's been doggedly pursuing for several years now, and he assures me that he's almost finished. Euan will be back to tell us more about his trawl through the Switchback catalogue, and I'm very excited to talk all about Returnal. Is it a roguelite or is it a roguelite? Find out in an upcoming episode. I mean, the Returnal's a 3D third-person shooter and not a 2D dungeon crawler with ASCII art graphics, so the answer's pretty obvious. But anyway, we are on social media. We're on Twitter, Facebook, MySpace, all the things, and we are at UNNC Gaming. That's UNNC Gaming. We have a Discord, and you can go to discord.me/UNNC Gaming to get an invite. Okay, that's it. Thanks for listening, and see you next time. Bye! Hiya. Welcome to the end of the podcast club. It's like Patreon content that you don't have to pay for. You may have noticed that as 3 Scottish gentlemen, we tend to say quite a lot when we're speaking. It's basically like an unofficial form of punctuation down here in the Central Belt. What you might not know is that there's a whole lot of "es" that you never get to hear because I edit them out before they get to you. So, for your enjoyment, I present some exclusive, never before broadcast "es" from the last 2 episodes. Enjoy. You know, so it's